Grace was talking about, a lot of movies are asking for more time because the visual effects teams aren't done with them yet. She was like, the studios keep planning these like they're live action movies. And she was like, these are animated movies.
Yeah.
She was like, Endgame is an animated movie.
It's like a mixed media.
Yeah.
It's like animated, but with real people.
She was like, you can't use the like live action scheduling.
Yeah.
They need over a year of post-production. Because even, I mean, rendering alone, like that's what's wrong with Iron Man 3. There's 2 or 3 shots in Iron Man 3 that are straight not finished because they didn't have time to finish rendering. You can pause it and see it's an unfinished visual effect.
Well, stupid.
It is.
Let it come out next week.
Hello, everybody. I am Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is I'm watching Impeachment, American Crime Story, Episode 9.
The Grand Jury.
The Grand Jury. I was mixed on this episode. I liked some of it. I like some of the parts that we got. But there was a couple things in it that I was kind of like, I wish that we had time or the ability, the way we scheduled this, we just don't really have time for fact checking.
Oh.
Because I want to know what about this is true. I feel like it has to be.
I feel
it's so easily fact checkable.
I feel like at least the grand jury statements, like the grand jury questioning, I feel like that has to be public record.
Like those lines of dialogue had to come from somewhere. I don't think someone just created them.
I think that is public record.
Yeah.
So I feel like they went to the public record and got it. Yeah.
Now, I could believe that because so we're starting with Monica's testifying. She dressed in a sensible navy skirt suit because she was going for it, not a deranged whore. Yeah. I laughed out loud at that.
I hope it's real. I like that she seems to have a sense of humor about the situation up to a point.
Very pragmatic.
Yeah. Up to a point, she's like, I have to laugh or I'll cry.
Well, and
that's nice.
She's at the only way past this is through.
Yeah.
And she was I think she was very pragmatic with how she handled the Bill Clinton, all of it. Yeah. Him wearing the tie, because I could go as far as to believe he has no clue. He does not remember.
Sure.
That she gave him that tie.
But doesn't it just feel nefarious? It just feels like a dick move. Like your ex-boyfriend who knows he's going to run into you at the Christmas party is like wearing the watch you gave him. And it's just like, you fucking asshole.
But because like her mother and the lawyer were like, well, what could it possibly mean? Yeah. And she was just like, I don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So there was twice where I could really see the machinations of the episode. And the first was in Monica's testimony. The grand jury was very judgmental. Yeah. And then like a tsunami, there was like a wave crash where they were suddenly very empathetic.
So it's like they were very judgy about the sex with a married man. But as soon as they found out that the FBI was like tricking her, when they were like, oh.
Even the one particular with like the burgundy, the judgmental one where she was like, I'm just confused. Yeah. And then the second woman, the pretty one with the braids, was like, I'm not. Yeah. And she kind of took over from there and was leading like a lot of stuff. Who was the woman in the front left? Was she like not?
She was not part of if she was part of the grand jury, she had to be like a foreman, if that's the thing with the grand jury. I intended to read the Wikipedia entry for grand jury again this week, and I did not have time. I know they are different, but she was
almost speaking in legalese, and I was like, I couldn't be prompted. Like,
she was like I feel like she was in charge in some way, but I also didn't get a chance to like count them.
My assumption would be that all of the things that were said in this were quotes, but maybe they were arranged in a more cinematic.
Sure. There is a foreman in a grand jury, so I suspect that's who she was.
We'll get back to that. We opened up with Linda Tripp in what's the word?
Isolation.
Self-imposed isolation at the Marriott or something.
I hate her so much. I just don't understand how the overblown sense of importance still. I've said it every episode that Linda Tripp's been in. I don't understand how you get that self-important, she says on her YouTube channel. But I'm not
into her camera.
I'm not forcing anyone to watch this, I guess is the difference. And she's forcing her I was going to say friends, she doesn't have any. She's forcing her children and her coworkers to experience this with her. And it's like, no one wants this. And at this point, even she doesn't want it, but she's committed so hard to this narrative of being victimized and potentially murdered by the Clintons. And I'm just like, and so then, but then in this self-imposed exile at the Marriott or whatever, she is having to like wait in line for the continental breakfast behind leagues of people who don't know how those waffle machines work.
It looked like, okay, I'm a little bit on their side with that, because it looked like you really had to hoist that lever.
You did have to put a Linda Tripp amount of heft into turning the knob, but regardless, I don't understand.
So there was an old Kathy Griffin bit where she was talking about she loved to go like guest on The View back when like Barbara Walters was there. Yeah. And she said, because every time Barbara was there was all these like panicky gay assistants that were always like, I'm putting out fires. Yeah. Like, and she has that vibe where she's just like, so like, oh, well, they need me. I don't even know how to begin explaining to you how to do this. And it's like, it's she's like, if a bureaucracy was a human being.
So that's the other thing
Linda
too.
Tripp.
Okay, that's the other thing too. Every time we've seen her at her job at the Pentagon, there's conservatively 50 other cubicles in there. Not a one of them does her job also. She's the only one in the government who arranges tours. No, there's no way. So that's the kind of stuff where she's like, when she goes to Jim Rash and she's like, I'm just trying to do my job and this is what I get and blah, 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 blah. And I feel a little bit bad because Jim Rash is like, there is an investigation now because all of this stuff is coming out about Linda Tripp. She was arrested in her youth. It was a prank that other kids played on her and the charges were dropped. But she said on her DOD application that she had never been arrested, which was a lie. So now she's been caught perjuring herself, too. It's unreal.
Also, I'm going to say something controversial, but sometimes the kids getting bullied
are also the bully.
Deserve it.
Yeah.
The kids who were being bullied are not behaving in a manner that
so I agree with you. That is in no way a pro-bullying stance.
No, but it's like it was giving me that vibe. And if we want to break down I feel
like Linda Tripp probably deserved it.
If we want to break down the laughing, joking, because a lot of what we do is kind of like ha ha ha, and being silly and exaggerating. It seems to be a fair amount of delusion, and it seems to be a fair amount of poor coping. She is clearly up to here with anxiety, and she's trying to focus, like funnel it all into her important work. And
it's not that important.
It's just, there are so many places in this woman's life where even just a tiny bit of therapy, you know,
or
let alone the most which she needs, but
a tiny bit of literally any drop of joy. Like if she just ate a cheeseburger, I feel like 40%.
Or I don't know, opened a Christmas shop.
I feel like just like 40% of her outlook on life might enhance if she just let herself eat a cheeseburger as opposed to Weight Watchers brand Tuscan white bean soup, which sounds just horrible.
It's just water with plastic and chalk in it.
It sounds awful.
You know, and
she didn't. I thought she was going to steal that woman's waffle, and she did not. And she needed that waffle. She should have eaten that waffle, or had her own waffle.
I've been a little bit perplexed by, especially Allison, the son less so much, but and I made a prediction that I was like, maybe there's going to be some grand, like, profound moment coming. I don't think we're going to get that. But I will say, being this close to the end, and especially Allison's role in this episode, I do sort of understand that it's not unlike, you know, Monica using her mother as counsel. It's like, this is who, I mean, your family's who you have. This is what, and Allison appears to have
a head on her shoulders
and a handle of what her mother is, who and what her mother is, and attempting to sort of like rein her in or hone her in. I don't know about the son other than he was too busy being a piece.
He's a fucking smoke show.
I've been waiting for it to come up because I saw back when this all started and you were like, what is with this comically attractive
guy that's playing her son?
And I was like, oh, you haven't seen the real one.
So fine.
So, yeah.
Wow.
And it was very, very gratifying seeing her get hers from the grand jury. And I did sort of love, because we spend the time with Monica first, and then she comes in, And I loved contrasting hers against Monica listening to the tapes.
Yeah.
So you have Colin Hanks and Gossip Girl, Karen.
Oh, yeah.
That actress was on the pilot of Gossip Girl.
She's the one taking pictures of Serena on the train platform.
It was Karen Immigrant, was the woman's name, that they were like reading the transcript or whatever. And fucking Linda Tripp is like mouthing along like it's the greatest hits.
Yeah.
And she's like waiting for all of her like applause and stuff. And then we kind of smash cut to Monica, and she's like mortified at the same comments and jokes. She's like, oh, I can't believe I said this.
She also is just like, I have to listen to all of these. And Mike Emick is like, yeah, well, they're evidence, so you have to certify that they're true.
Ann Coulter sent you this case of wine. You're gonna need it.
The only way that would have been worth it.
And again, I'm gonna hope that that's true, because there's been sort of a Greek chorus through this entire series. But what about Monica? What about this? And so you're afraid for your safety, but not Monica's. And it just
and the way that Linda is like trying to co-opt this narrative into like, well, Monica was like she almost was like, well, she was already suicidal. What more is gonna? And I'm like, well, she could follow through. That's an option. I just like.
Well, and you encouraged her with the tie banter. She was like, that was pro Marshall's banter.
Oh God, I just like. I loved that, not because the one guy, there was like one man in the grand jury that had lines for both, and he just was like, what did he even say? He was like, are you saying that you thought you'd be killed? And she was like, yes. And it's just like, that's not the way. And then she tries to like bring the Vince Foster thing back in, which I thought we were way finished with. Apparently
we're
not.
Still talking about that.
Oh boy.
Well, we're not, but certain circles
Some people are.
I mentioned earlier that I said this was a slightly mixed episode. The other thing for me that I kind of hated was there was a terrible scene in the middle with Steve and Paula Jones.
I mean, I don't think it was such a terrible scene.
Oh, it was terrible. I appreciate the sentiment of it, but it was very poorly written. And by Annalee Ashford's strength of will alone.
Maybe that's why. Maybe I was blinded.
I mean, I love Taron Killam, but even he was sort of like belly flat. No, it was Annalee Ashford landing that plane.
Was bad. He was not great. I mean, he sucks. Steve Jones sucks.
That's I was gonna say this isn't an indictment of Taron Killam.
No, but I did appreciate that she finally. I mean, he didn't do it, but she was like, "Say the thing you want to say. Tell me that you think I gave the president a blowjob. You tell me to my face," because the whole time, and
everyone knows what you did.
And again with the gaslighting, because they told her not to take that money, and then he's like, "Well, how much money do we get?" And she's like, "Nothing. You made me turn it down." And he's like, "All I ever wanted was the money." And it's like, you could have had $700,000.
No, you wanted
you wanted to be on Designing Women.
That's apparently not true.
Yeah.
That's the part that's apparently not true, but I don't know. Yeah, it was.
Well,
it was
didn't
just
get it regardless.
Yeah, it was just real clunky, and I wish Paula in the real life was a bit more
like Annalee Ashford,
accessible, or not accessible, but open, or I don't know. I think she's taking the wrong
approach to this,
the wrong approach and the wrong moral from all of this, because I'm like, Annalee is doing you a favor.
Oh wait, a big favor.
You need to not be throwing jabs.
She also got a nose job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A very nose heavy show.
Yeah.
There's a lot of silly putty being passed around the set of this show.
Monica had to go back in for more questioning. Is that where you were?
No, I was going to go with Bill throwing himself at the mercy of Hillary.
Yeah. In a really still a self-serving way.
I mean, this is more about me. I found it interesting.
It's interesting, and here's the thing:
I kind of bought it.
I don't have zero sympathy for Bill Clinton. That's not a zero sum for me. I have some level of sympathy. I understand. I don't understand because it's not something I've experienced, but I can believe that being that type of man with that much charm for your whole life.
Well, to get the president. I mean, the pressure.
I'm not done.
Okay.
And then you meet a woman like Hillary, who is your equal, which he mentions in this is not the case with most of his peers. They married women that they think are insipid and can't stand hearing them talk at dinner. So you get that. You have the whole package. I can get the instinct to like And then on top of that, you are president. You are the most powerful man in the world. You are the president of the United States in the 90s.
But we keep looking at it from from the power, and I'm looking at the pressure.
Sure.
He even said lonely.
100%. But I can also feel that instinct to be like, well, it's too good. Like a lizard brain thing being like, gotta fuck something up. May as well be that intern's life.
Well, and so and I know that we've touched on this a little bit, but it was something that Katya said in a Trixie and Katya episode where they were talking about like cheating or something like that. And Katya was like, look, I am a monogamist, but can we stop pretending that adultery is the worst crime that a person can commit?
So that's the thing too, is
because we're not technically, that's not what they're arguing about. I mean, it's a factor.
It's a factor. But again, that to my point, it's the lying. If he hadn't lied about it, if he had come clean to Hillary.
Well, and I think even more than that, it's the public humiliation. I think
of Hillary.
She's humiliated.
But that's the thing, is if he had told Hillary about it immediately, like, I made a mistake, here's what's happening, this would have turned out so differently.
I mean, I think so. I do. And also the other thing that's happening is we don't have a sense of the timetable per se exactly. So just give her a minute. She might need like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
To just really decide how she feels and what she intends to do about it. And he does seem, based on what the show is showing us, he does seem like he's kind of trying to bully her back in, like right back to normal.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I have found it interesting. The Hillary Clinton of it all, I have found very, very interesting. I wanted to go back to when especially that one biddy was like giving Monica the third degree about the married man and stuff. And she was acting so confused about it. And I was like, the unavailability is frequently a part of it.
100%.
It's the fact that Monica clearly, and especially at this point in her life, clearly has issues. Yeah. She said, I have a lot of work to do on myself.
Yeah. So, authority figure issues, daddy issues, probably like a praise kink in there.
So to sort of be in this have your cake and eat it too, like to be able to have this, relationship where deep in the back of your mind, he's not leaving his wife. Like it keeps you more safe. And I don't know. That's sort of what I was getting at when I was so mad last week, where I was like, why is everybody stupid?
Yeah.
Is it's like, this is 101. Like, this is textbop.
Yeah, and because they they cut to almost everybody on the grand jury rolling their eyes about her. Jesus. Like, and I'm just like, as if none of you have done anything wrong in your lives. It's just like, come on.
Also, the cigar, iconic. I
guess.
If you read that in a book,
I would no.
Okay, maybe I'm showing too much of my hand, but
okay, here is my thing about a cigar, is that if a cigar goes inside me, it's going to cause me health problems. That's where I'm concerned.
I'm coming at it from an Elio fucks the peach place.
Sure.
I think that's some real bad bitch, like 100% that bitch. And I'm tired of it being brandished as like shame or
that is not the kinkiest thing that's ever happened at all.
I'm standing by my assessment.
That's fine. I'm just saying. I'm just saying it's not like the end all be all of like weird kinks. So like, why should it be so shameful? Mm-hmm. I'm on your team. I just also don't think it's very sexy because I'm worried about my health.
I will refrain from sound effects. I think Beanie's been fantastic this entire series, but I think this episode was a very, very interesting and a more subtle showcase.
So there were so many good things that I liked about her performance. The first is that it's very girlish in this episode, especially where she like doesn't understand, or she like thinks that she's going to learn everybody's names on the grand jury. And Mike Emick is like, no. Like, that's not how it's done. And then they all keep calling her Miss Lewinsky. And she's like, can you just call me Monica? I'm 25. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't, this is like.
But also because it's hitting at a thing that has always bugged me my whole life. Where I'm like, she's actually very likable.
Yeah, she's a regular person. Also, it keeps hurting my feelings that she keeps talking about getting married.
Oh.
No. It hurts my feelings that she keeps saying sorry, but it's not in the same way. And also, in the 90s and in this scenario, she should apologize a little bit. Like, so, you know, it's not like the woman keeps saying sorry. I'm not mad.
She does
keep
like they have said it. They've hammered it home, which makes me feel like it was a note from Monica
that she was sorry.
No,
the married thing.
That they've said it. She's like, well, I'll be married by then, so it won't matter.
Just makes me sad. Like, all she wanted was to get married and have kids, and like totally ruined her life. I guess the only other thing I want to talk about was the Juanita Broderick and then the other Monica scene.
What was the other Monica scene? When
she has to go back in with Karen and detail every sexual instance. Ugh. I can't. It's horrible. And all of the men are too cowardly to call her back in, so Karen has to do it. They're all sitting around in a room, the four of them, Brett Kavanaugh and Ken Starr and Mike and the other one, and they're all just like, who's going to tell her she's going to come back in? And
you said like 2 or 3 weeks ago where you were like, you know, thank you to the actor playing Brett Kavanaugh for taking this hit. And I was like, he'll be fine. I don't know.
No, maybe not.
I can't even look at his face without gritting my teeth.
Horrible.
Hate him so much.
Horrible.
I almost hate him more than I do. I hate him more than Linda Tripp.
Yeah. Because, okay, so then that's the other thing.
Linda Tripp is sad. He's just like
no, he's getting off on it.
We know one thing.
Yeah. It's PJ and Squee. We go back to Juanita Broderick, who was in a handful of episodes ago, saying she didn't want to make another statement, that she was like done with all of this. And 2 other FBI agents go back and they ask her if she lied in her first statement, in which Bill Clinton did nothing to her. And she comes back and says she did lie because she just wanted to be done with it. And it was like not malicious. No one paid her to lie. She just didn't want it to like be like brought up in the circus or whatever. So the one guy whose name I don't know, but he's been around in all
thing 1 and thing 2, yeah.
Yeah. He actually seems sort of decent. He's the one that introduced himself to Monica, and she was like, "Oh, I remember who you are." He brings this report to Ken Starr and is like,
"Oh, yes.
Juanita Broderick says that Bill Clinton raped her." And he's like, that doesn't speak to his criminality. And the guy is like, well,
he was like, raping, so he was like, so what? This is a like perjury or public
perjury and whatever. Yeah, trial. So they just.
And he said, well,
put her in a footnote. Make it an appendix. Put her in a footnote.
A literal footnote in history. He was like,
so this this consensual sexual relationship is the crime, and he raped this woman and no consequences. This is where I lose my sympathy for Bill Clinton, because he's gotten away with so much bullshit his whole life because he's handsome and charming and he had enough money to make it go away. It's unreal. It makes me furious. Poor Juanita Broderick.
We almost lost Rachel.
Oh my God. On the floor. She hit
the floor. And she flushed. She turned bright red. Because just the way he was, because you're right. I wish we could read it word for word.
Yeah.
That scene, because that was
it was quite good. It was like very
poetry,
good,
and he just was like, that doesn't speak to his criminality, and he was like, except for the raping.
Yeah.
And then what did he say after that? I don't remember. It just he was like,
because then Ken Starr was like, no, it's perjury or this other thing, and that's it. And I was like, so in the first place, your investigation is out of bounds from Whitewater. So you shouldn't be investigating any of the sex that Bill Clinton is having, regardless of who it's with. So then you open it up to sex, and then you won't take the actual sex crime. You won't take that. That's not an actual thing. Ridiculous. I mean, you could say so many things. The statute of limitations is over. That was in the 1980s. Sex crime laws are still not where they should be. There's probably no physical evidence. It's her word against his. It's not going to go anywhere, but it should not be a footnote. It should be its own section of this investigation. They should have run it into the ground, but they're terrible. Now I'm heated. Now I'm like, I'm sweaty. I'm so mad. Ah! Okay.
So, it appears that Hillary has warmed up.
Well, okay, but in the last episode, she was like, this is an arrangement now. And I think she knows that if it's going to be an arrangement and not like a true marriage, she still has to do her end of the deal. And her end of the deal is to make him likable, make people know they can forgive him, and be there by his side. And that blows. But I think she just sort of like nutted up.
It's what she do.
It is what she do.
So we got one more episode.
Yep.
And we'll go from there.
Yeah.
where the titular role, the impeachment shows up.
Yeah, right. Well, that guy's name is Saul Rosenberg or Saul Weisenberg, by the way. The guy that brought the.
I was thinking of the two generically hot guys.
They were just very regular guy handsome.
That was,
it was very
thing
funny.
1 and thing 2.
Yeah.
But aren't they the same ones that also talk to Linda at Christmas time and like?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the final episode. I am looking forward. I have loved this show, and it has been actually excellent.
It's directed by Quentin Tarantino, right? They're gonna like burn the White House down, and
that would be amazing.
Linda Tripp was like, they've turned me into Joseph Goebbels.
Oh God, and so inflated. I am ready for this show to be over. I don't know how much more I can take. I'm very
13 ulcers is your cap.
I'm very at my wit's end with this bullshit.
So, all right, like and subscribe.
Yep, money.
That's what you've zeroed down on.
Money, money, please.
So I'm watching this. So I'm watching.com @soimwatching, patreon.com /so I'm watching the show. Blah, blah, blah. So we'll see you next week.
Bye.